Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Tie Break. This is Aaron Kumar, and I'm delighted to say that once again I'm joined by my good friend, the editor of Cricket World, John Pennington. John, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well actually. It's another packed week of sport, so let's start with the cricket, John. Obviously India won the ODI series 3-1, but a bit of pride restored there for England yesterday with that victory. What did you make of the series, John?
Yeah, I mean, India very much dominated the series. I think there was a little bit of sort of taking their foot off the gas in the final game, but England sort of got a few things right finally. You know, Cook got some runs, Joe Root obviously scored a century, but that's one century in the series, and really India got 2 centuries, Shikhar Dhawan got 9. That's the sort of thing you need. So England are still not quite where they need to be. Interesting reading Kevin Pietersen this morning. He's sort of saying it's all very well getting 100, but you need to be sort of getting 150 and scoring big runs. And he came up with an interesting team that he thinks should be playing. So that Jason Roy opening with Alex Hales, then Moeen Ali or Ian Bell, Ravi Bopara, Owen Morgan, Butler and a few others. Interesting. He left himself out of it, which I thought was quite interesting. But if you threw him in there, then England would have a very good one-day international team. But all credit to India. They are the world champions, but England are a very, very long way behind still, even with that win yesterday.
Absolutely, I found it quite interesting as well actually reading that piece by Kevin Pietersen, because you could see almost a frustration. He almost was quite an interesting perspective. He said that for so long he's been in the England bubble and now he's sort of come out of it and he's obviously able to take a different approach. And he almost described Alistair Cook's approach to holding on to the one-day captaincy as a bit selfish, didn't he? And writing off England's chances, kind of saying it was far-fetched. He feels that there's still enough time to turn things around potentially.
Yeah, he did, and it's interesting that England has sort of, scheduled these back-to-back Ashes so that they can compete in the World Cup. But what it's come down to is actually they've got the wrong captain in the job. He's captained the team 63 times, and I think that's more times than any other England captain. And you almost think, well, that's maybe sort of 60 times too many. But that's where we are. And I don't think they're going to change things now because of what's happened before with Pietersen leaving and the rest of it. So they're going to be stuck with him and hope for the best, really, which isn't exactly the greatest way to go to a World Cup, but there we are.
No, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to kind of follow. And of course, prior to that World Cup, we do have we've got quite a bit of one-day cricket to come, but I think the triangular series with England, India, Australia, that'll be quite an exciting series. It should be, shouldn't it, in Australia? It'll give us a real test before, in those conditions, of what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be very important for England because those are going to be the final 4 games. They've got a couple of other warm-ups, but they won't be full one-day internationals. So those are going to be their only 4 games in Australia, in New Zealand, to really get themselves into full readiness for that World Cup. They do play a 7 ODI series in Sri Lanka, but the conditions are so vastly different. You wonder what they're going to get out of that other than sort of match practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as you say, I think the fact you can't really beat playing in the conditions, and that's really going to help both India and England, you'd think. So it'll be very interesting to see how the series works. I think the way the groups are done, they were looking at the groups the other day, wasn't it, that I think Nick Knight was kind of saying on Sky that England could pretty much beat, I think it was Afghanistan, Scotland and Bangladesh, and potentially get through to the quarter-finals. So there is a bit of room for manoeuvre there, isn't there, the way the groups work?
Yeah, there is, but don't rule out an upset there. Bangladesh beat England in the last one. Scotland will be certainly pumped through, and Afghanistan have turned over Bangladesh before, and you never know. So I think to say, yeah, we'll beat those 3, we'll be fine, is perhaps a little bit blasé. You've got to be very careful. Yeah, they should get through, but don't rule out the way they're playing. If it doesn't go well in Sri Lanka and it doesn't go well in the tri-series, don't rule out England not getting out of the groups.
And I think it's a very fair point, JK. We should even look back at England's last World Cup briefly. Like, they had some excellent results. They tied with India, who were the eventual champions. They beat South Africa, but then they also lost to Ireland and Bangladesh, as you say. So you can't actually take anything for granted.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to do in that World Cup, if you wanted to follow drama, you followed England, because they tied with India. They almost lost to the Netherlands. They had very close finishes against the West Indies and South Africa. And as you mentioned, they had those upsets. And that Ireland game was an outstanding game of cricket for the neutral, because Ireland were absolutely dead and buried and came back from nowhere to win, which is obviously one of our themes on Tiebreak. That was an epic comeback.
No, completely. Well, JP, we've done a bit with England and India, but there's been some other cricket going on in the world. I know the West Indies are playing Bangladesh. They made a fairly reasonable start, didn't they, in their test match yesterday?
Yeah, they've had a superb start out there, the West Indies. I mean, Bangladesh, they are struggling at the moment. They've obviously missed Shakib Al Hasan. He's going to be back. They've sort of reduced the terms of his ban there. Saeed Ghazi was reported for a suspect bowling reactions. He's come home. They threw in a couple of debutants who took all 3 wickets yesterday, but 264 for 3 for West Indies on day one. They're going to be looking at 500, 600 plus batting once, and they should go on and win that one.
Definitely, and it's interesting, isn't it? I think obviously Sammy's now retired, and you've got Ramd in there, and they seem to gradually kind of be gelling together, and there's some encouraging signs there for the West Indies, it seems.
Yeah, it's important because, Shimron Chanderpaul's not going to be around forever. Chris Gale's not going to be around for too much longer, so they need to get the players. And it is very pleasing to see the likes of Craig Braithwaite, Jermaine Blackwood coming in, scoring runs, and they'll benefit greatly from the final sort of years of Chanderpaul's career and Gale as well. So things looking up for the West Indies as well. Brilliant.
And over in Africa, we've got Australia playing at the moment, and you're giving us a bit of an update on that, JP. It's not going too well.
Yeah, the latest score we have, Australia 138-7. This is the Tri-Series final against South Africa. There's a lot of injuries in this tournament. We did have an upset last week when Zimbabwe beat Australia. And before this game, we knew that Molly Morgan and JP Duminy were battling to be fit, but they have been past fit, so we'll see how that one plays out. But at the moment, Australia are struggling to set a target, and South Africa looking like favourites in that one. So I think that pretty much rounds up where we are with the cricket. What about the tennis now? The US Open coming towards its closing stage, and has some wonderful action over the last few days as well.
It certainly has, JP. I mean, where do we start? I mean, as far as the men's goes, we've now got our semi-final lineup complete. So we're going to have Roger Federer taking on Marin Cilic later on, and we'll also have Novak Djokovic taking on Kei Nishikori from Japan. And that's quite interesting, JP, because we're almost seeing the start of a new era in a sense, because all 4 are coached by past Grand Slam champions. We've got Federer with Stefan Edberg, Djokovic with Boris Becker, Nishikori with Michael Chang, and Cilic with Goran Ivanisevic. So it's quite a little interesting thing. They're all players from the time that we grew up, almost in the 90s, kind of back coaching now. And I mean, we'll start with the Federer match, really, looking back at that quarter-final. Phenomenal match from Gael Monfils. I mean, people have said for a long time that Monfils has a talent to be right up there with those big 4 guys, the top 3. He's just got all the shots, but so often he just likes to be the entertainer. He likes to almost clown around, if you will, kind of just make the people happy. He's more satisfied with that kind of an outcome. But for the first 2 sets, he was really just executing his shots, being aggressive, took a 2-set-to-love lead, actually had 2 match points to win the match, but one was a great forehand winner from Federer, the other was a backhand which Monfils might have made on another day, but he didn't. But for Federer, we have to say it's a phenomenal performance. It's not too often he's had to come back from 2-sets-to-love down because of the dominance he had earlier on in his career, so it's not that often he's done it. And he said it's one of his most satisfying wins, even at this stage of his career, that he was able to dig that out. It will be interesting to see how he gets on against Cilic. He's never lost to Cilic, but of course Cilic might be buoyed by seeing how close Federer came, and Cilic is playing some phenomenal tennis, so that'll be a good one. And then obviously we've got Nishikori, who's just been phenomenal this US Open. He's had 2 5-set matches in a row, both were like 4.5 hours, both he was down and he's come through both. You do feel it's going to be a bridge too far for him tonight against Djokovic, who, well, again, the match with Murray was worthy of a final. I mean, Murray, it's safe to say he's very close to being back to where he was. He played some phenomenal tennis for 4 sets, and I think against nearly anyone else he probably would have gotten through, but Djokovic has got this enormous powers of resilience. His defence is just world class, and everything that Murray threw at him, he was still able to come back and win the match fairly comfortably in 4 sets in the end, so it's hard to see anyone stopping him.
And what about the women's? We've had again some very interesting matches and sort of unfortunate end to one of the recent games, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was quite a shame actually. I mean, obviously Serena from her half, she's been fairly dominant and she's cruised through, beating Makarova. Bit of revenge there because her and her sister lost to Makarova and Vesina in the ladies' doubles, so Serena's through. And then we had Wozniacki against Peng. I mean, Peng's done so well to have made it through to the semi. She beat Radwanska, one of the top seeds early on. And she just seemed that she was a set and a break down against Wozniacki. And she had a break-back point. She just seemed to suffer with the heat and extensive cramps, and she was struggling to even stand up, and she had to be taken off in a wheelchair in the end, which it was a real shame. I mean, it's not really how you want to see a Grand Slam semi-final end, but I guess that's part of the game and there's nothing you can do. But it's not a nice sight to see someone being wheelchaired off, at the end of a semi-final.
And pick your winners then, Aaron. It's time.
I'm going to stick with what I said from the start. I'm going with Serena and Djokovic for the ladies and men. But I think it's going to be close. You're going to have some great tennis ahead of us. So, yeah, and don't forget, guys, later on we are going to have Liesl Huber on, a separate show, and she's going to be taking your questions, so keep them coming on Ask Liesl. And also, don't forget to ask any questions you want about her career or her tennis or anything like that. She'll be happy to answer. So, JP, that pretty much rounds off what we've had of the last 2 weeks' tennis, but we were talking about Cook earlier and whether he should be, the captain or whether he's the right man. We were having a bit of a debate earlier about the football as well and Rooney, although I know England did get through against Norway the other day. Tell us a bit about that, JP.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't particularly impressed. I don't think many people were with the way that England performed against Norway. There seemed to be no sort of final ball through. They made some errors, but better teams would certainly punish them at the back. But you sort of wonder, Wayne Rooney, he didn't have a great game. Okay, sure, good penalty, well done. But when they sort of moved Sterling into the middle and brought Welbeck on, we looked a better team, and you sort of think, well, sooner or later, as Hodgson's got to, well, actually, he's really in my best team at the moment. Well, Sturridge just got injured, hasn't he? So he's not an option now. So that kind of takes the pressure off Rooney a little bit. But if everybody was fit, I'm not sure that at this moment in time, Rooney's playing well enough to get in the team if I was picking it. So, interesting sort of parallel there with Alistair Cook. But, it's a new era for England. We always say this after a major tournament, but particularly because there's no Gerrard, there's no Lampard, so they come to sort of build again that midfield. I was quite impressed with Sterling. I thought he did quite well when he moved into the middle, which we wouldn't also normally associate him as playing in the middle. But there's some exciting young players, but they've got to sort of shore it up at the back a little bit and make sure they get really back into form, really.
Absolutely, no, that's definitely. It's quite interesting we had the parallels actually, JP. There was another parallel it was just a little talking point I had. I wanted to run it by you and see what you thought, because in cricket sometimes, when we get a controversial decision and then it's shown on the big screen and the crowd sometimes react because the crowd know that maybe it hasn't gone the way that they wanted, and sometimes you hear the media a little bit critical about the fact that the replay was shown. They said if it wasn't shown, the crowd wouldn't know and then there would be no tension. But something happened the other way around. I don't know if you saw. It was Burdick was playing Cilic in the quarterfinals of the US Open, and Burdick was adamant that he'd got to the ball in just one bounce. Actually, the replay showed it was 2 bounces, and he's since apologised for he did have a bit of an outburst at the umpire. He really was not happy. He was adamant it was 1 bounce. And the commentators were saying, actually, if they'd had a replay up at that particular point in time, it would have diffused the situation. Burdick would have seen... And I thought that's quite interesting, because in cricket we sometimes hear the complete opposite. But what's your take on that, JP, with video replay?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you get sort of both sides of it. Yeah, on that occasion, I agree. It would have just sort of, everyone's seen it, fine, move on. But sometimes you're right, the crowd can see a replay and get on the things. There was another sort of example in the Williams 2020 game. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was an excellent bit of sport. It was the other round. It was a really good bit of sportsmanship by the England players who she was given, I think she was given not out, run out, but she walked, sort of thing. I don't know if there was a big screen replay, but had it been the other way around, she'd stood her ground and there'd been a replay, then there would have been trouble. So you kind of, I don't know, there's a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, but it's an interesting talking point about the role of big screens in TV. I know they just installed some even bigger ones at Twickenham, ready for the Autumn International, so everybody will be able to see exactly what's going on. But it's an interesting one. I haven't really sort of got a definitive answer. You've sort of thrown that at me, but sometimes it can be a good thing, but other times it can sort of get the crowd whipped up into a bit of a frenzy as well, can't it?
Exactly. So I think it's almost a case of the powers that be and the people involved almost needing to use their common sense on almost a case-by-case basis. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. It's just assessing the situation and seeing how, I guess, confrontation can be diffused, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's a discretion thing as well, because you don't want to be putting replays up that undermine what's going on in the middle. An umpire or referee, that doesn't help anybody, because that just lessens the spectacle. So I think it's an interesting one.
Great. Well, JP, once again, thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem. Enjoyed it as ever.
And guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to keep following us on @TieBreakSports. And once we reach up to 100, you can win one of these very nice Bones original shirts. And stay tuned for more. We'll see you next time.